A new home application would take at least 2 weeks just to process. Just another blatant example of what may be coming to, or without you even knowing, is currently happening in your community.
You might look at us and think that we're some kind of a coalition of weirdos, and actually there's professionals, there's business owners, there's college graduates. We're not just a bunch of weird people. We're people that are living here in this community paying our taxes, or nationals of somewhere in the United States or Idaho. And we have, what we feel anyway, are legitimate concerns.
Due to mounting pressure from the Twin Falls community, the families of the boys accused of the assault have since been evicted. John Bound for Infowars.com.
That's a great report from our reporter, John Bound, putting together people's concerns because we're not seeing any vetting or background checks of the people we're bringing into this country, are we? And of course, anytime they commit crimes, it's covered up, and we're told, as he pointed out in the report, oh, it's an American who did this or a Frenchman who did this. Well, they're second generation. And as we've talked about that, the second generation is far more dangerous as a group than the first generation. When they're brought in here, the first generation understands something about where they came from, but the second generation has been fed this diet of hate in the schools, and they're looking to create a second identity. And in the cases of these Muslim communities, they've also been self-ghettoized, where they're not really getting out in the other crowd. They don't mix with other people. So all these factors come together and create this situation. Now, before we go back to Brexit, I just want to point out some of the specials we got today. We've got the Tim Kennedy special still going, 15% off of Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, and Secret 12. You find that at InfoWarsLife.com. Also, all of our Alexa Pure water filters, from the largest system down to the shower filter, are still 20% off at InfoWarsStore.com. And then we have Hillary for Prison at InfoWarsStore.com. We have the Hillary for Prison t-shirt. Now, you can get 50% off the Hillary for Prison t-shirt. When you go there, you'll see a link to sign up for the newsletter. If you sign up for the newsletter, and you're a new newsletter recipient, you get a code, and you can get a second t-shirt or more for 75% off. This is a great way to spread the message as to which house Hillary needs to be sent to. Okay, and that's the big house. Now, we're not going to have any results for the Brexit vote, interestingly enough, for quite some time. And as I point out before, that's because they have chosen not to do any exit polls. I mean, don't you really find that suspicious? The news organization says, no, on this big event, right, the biggest event these people are going to vote on in their lives, we don't really want to have the results for you right away. We want these to trickle in gradually and slowly overnight, where they can manage the results and manage expectations. And as I point out, having no exit polls is the first sign of massive rigging of elections. Now, take a look at this article that we have at Infowars.com. Brexit Insider says the European Union is the new Soviet Union. And, of course, this is taken from my interview yesterday with Lord Christopher Monckton. Take a look at the article. Take a look at the interview. He had a lot to say, but let me read you a couple of excerpts from what he had to say yesterday. He said the European Constitution is an entirely anti-democratic constitution. In fact, it's very much like the Soviet Constitution on which it was modeled. All that has happened is the Soviet Constitution has moved westward, and we are now effectively the European Supreme Soviet. He said, don't be fooled by all the economic arguments that the Treasury has simply made up numbers to try to say we would go bankrupt if we were out of the European Union. We'll go bankrupt for sure if we're in it. In the last 2 decades, the stock market in London has had its worst 2 decades in 650 years of operation. That's how well the EU has done for us. And finally, he says, imagine if you were in the United States and you were told that you had to depend on 27 other nations, on their will, any of whom could say no to anything you did. That's what we have in Europe. He said we have a dictatorship. So will today be Independence Day for Britain? Not sure. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show for our final segment. I'm David Knight. As we were saying, as we went to break, we have an article on Infowars.com. Brexit Insider says EU is the new Soviet Union. It truly is about sovereignty. They talk a lot about economics. And, of course, the Leave people have some very specific metrics that they've taken, saying, look at how much more we're sending each week to the European Union that we're losing, a net loss of £350 million. That's about $500,000 a week they're sending. Said, We could use this however we wish here. We could put it into the national health system that they have there, the welfare system, or whatever. But that's going to other people who write our laws, who write 60% of our laws. You can't have prosperity when you lose your sovereignty. And there was an interesting article that came out this last weekend from the Washington Post. They say Europe worries that a Brexit vote could trigger a stampede of exits. And I thought this opening paragraph was very interesting. They said, the decision could lead to the destruction of one of the most ambitious political projects since the Holy Roman Empire. And what we see now happening is truly part of the world government plan. We've been saying that for a very long time. It is an ambitious political process to remove sovereignty from all of the Western governments who really oppose these neo-colonialists. We're the only ones that had the power and the wealth to oppose the globalists. And so they're shutting down our governments. They're going to have their way in the third world, just as they always have. But now they're treating us as if we were their colonies. And they're shutting down our governments. And the Washington Post is talking about this. They say, among the casualties, critics fear could be plans for a massive free trade deal between the United States and Europe. They say the days, if they get out of this agreement, they say the days in which leaders convened in Brussels to hand over even more sovereignty to the European Union may be over if Britain departs, say diplomats. You see, that's the problem. That's what's destroying Britain as well as the other countries. They're they're meeting in Brussels to hand over the sovereignty to this foreign body. And that is not going to stop if they remain, okay? They say, well, it might stop if we remain. And they have a quote from a guy who says, we have a flag, we have an anthem. We don't have much of what supports that flag and that anthem, said the chief of staff to Jacques Delors, the leader of the European Commission. From 1985 to 1995, he was considered to be one of the main architects of the modern EU. So they got a flag, they got an anthem, but they don't have the things to support this United States of Europe, which is now being consolidated with America, with the transatlantic partnership. That's the next step. They don't want it to unravel before they go to the next step of consolidation. And they go on to say, this is Washington Post, openly talking about how they're consolidating this and taking away people's sovereignty. They say the turmoil is, quote, extremely disappointing to the founding fathers who thought they were like medieval alchemists, he said. They thought they could transform the stone of economic integration into the gold of political integration. Understand that. They're going to take this stone and turn it into gold, okay? What is the stone? Economic integration. They want to turn that into political integration. And that's what we're telling you. The Trans-Pacific and the Transatlantic partnerships are not about free trade. They're about taking you over politically. We have the EFF, the Electronic Freedom Foundation, others saying, hey, this is not about trade. This is about taking our rights on the internet and other things. And it is far more than that, folks. It is global governance. We're going to have our Independence Day vote, referendum, first Tuesday in November. It's going to be about Trump. You know, Trump said yesterday, we got here because we switched from a policy of Americanism to a policy of globalism. So stay with us and join us tonight, 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the InfoWars Nightly News.